This video is going to be everything you need to know about parallel lines cut by transversals and the angle relationships that it forms. So in the diagram on the screen, we have three lines, line H, line K, and line P. We can see that line H is parallel to line K, and then line P is the transversal. Remember that a transversal is a line that intersects two or other lines. Normally, we're going to be using that when we're talking about parallel lines being cut by another line. So in this case, H and K are parallel lines, P is our transversal. You can notice that it forms 8 angles, and I numbered them 1 through 8, but they form a lot of different relationships. So if we start with angles 1 and angles 4, we know that these are called vertical angles. So angle 1 and angle 4, angle 5 and angle 8, angles 2 and 3, and angles 6 and 7. Remember that vertical angles are congruent, they are equal. That is one of the relationships we need to be aware of. The next one is going to be alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles. And again, alternate interior angles are congruent. So in this case, our alternate interior angles, we look at the 4 interior angles. So we're talking about inside the 2 parallel lines. We're talking about 3, 4, 5, and 6. Alternate meaning on opposite sides of the transversal. So the first one's going to be 3 and 6. And the second set is 4 and 5. So 3 is equal to 6, and 4 is equal to 5. The next thing we're going to talk about is alternate exterior angles. And once again, alternate exterior angles are congruent, they are equal. So the 4 exterior angles are 1, 2, 7, and 8. They're on the outside of the parallel line, so the first alternate is 1 and 8. So angle 1 and angle 8, those two are equal. Angle 2 and angle 7 are equal. So that's alternate exterior and alternate interior. And the last thing we're going to talk about is corresponding angles. So I'll put that down here. Corresponding angles are congruent, once again. So we're talking about a lot of different things of congruent angles. Remember, corresponding was what I told you, that you can take these top 4 angles, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can bring them down, and they'll line up exactly with 5, 6, 7, and 8. So if I was to just shift them down, or if this thing is on its side, I can shift them wherever, 1 matches up with 5. They're in the exact same position. The first 4 angles, angle 1 is in the top left, up here, top left. In the bottom 4 angles, 5, 6, 7, and 8, angle 5 is in the top left. Therefore, angle 1 is congruent to or equal to angle 5. They are corresponding. So if they ask why, you have to give that reason. And then the same thing with 2 and 6. 2 and 6, 3 and 7, and then 4 and 8. So when you have 2 parallel lines and you cut it by a transversal, we create all of these kinds of angle pairs. The screen just shut off, so give me a second to get it back on. I'm going to keep talking. We create vertical angles, which don't have to be with parallel lines, but they are. Vertical angles are congruent. We create alternate interior angles and alternate exterior angles. Those are also going to be congruent. And we create corresponding angles. Those as well are going to be congruent. So anytime you have those 4 relationships, the equation you're going to create is one of the angles equals the other angle. If you're giving any other pair of angles from these 8 angles, then they're not congruent, they're supplementary. So for example, angles 1 and 2 do not fall on any of these lists. Plus, you can just look at the diagram and see that together they form a straight line, so they are supplementary. But if they give you 2 angles where it's not as easy to tell, so maybe angles 1 and angle 7, well, you have to look. Angles 1 and 7 are both exterior angles, but they're on the same side of the transversal, so they are not alternate exterior, they're just both exterior angles. Since they're not alternate exterior, they are not congruent, therefore they are supplementary. So those are the kind of things you have to look for. You have to look if they're alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding, or vertical. If they're one of those four pairs, then they are congruent. If they're not, then they're supplementary. Someone asked in class today, what would happen if you have more than two parallel lines? And this hasn't come up in class yet, but you can take the same properties and apply it. So I'm going to draw three parallel lines. And I'm going to cut it by a transversal. So now, instead of forming 8 angles, it forms 12 angles, but we're going to follow the same steps. The only problem is you can't look at like alternate interior, alternate, so you can, but for this one I would just look at the corresponding angles. So 1, 5, and 9 all correspond, 2, 6, and 10 all correspond, 3, 7, 11, 4, 8, 12. So if they give you angle 1 and angle 6, and you need to determine an equation, I can see that 1 and 6 are not congruent. They do not match up because 1 and 5 are congruent. So 1 can't be congruent to 6. That means 1 and 6 are supplementary. So angles 1 plus angle 6 equals 180. And so forth. So 1 and 10 are 180, and 1 and 11 are 180. So it's the same properties, you just gotta bring it down between 3 sets of angles instead of 2. If they drew a second transversal, and they numbered these angles, I don't know, 13, 14, all the way down to 24, these angles have nothing to do with the first line. Since there are two completely separate transversals, you cannot compare the angles. So 1 through 12 all go together, and then 13 through 24 all go together. You have to treat them completely separately because they have the same transversal. That's the only thing here. It's not going to come up much. It might come up. The only other situation I want you to be aware of is when you're not dealing with something that looks like that. So if they give you, I don't know, like a Z, for example, and they tell you that the top line and the bottom line are parallel, you need to know that this, I'm going to letter them to make it easier. You need to know that line BC is a transversal. So then angles 1 and 2, what kind of angles are those? Well, we have parallel, we have a parallel line, another parallel line, and a transversal. So angles 1 and 2 are alternate interior angles. So therefore they are congruent. So you need to be able to spot that on other figures other than what we're normally seeing, something like that. You need to be able to look at other figures and use the same angle relationships as we talked about. So that's pretty much everything you're going to need to know on parallel lines and transversals, and that also is pretty much every angle relationship we have learned. The only one I didn't mention was complementary. That's just when two or more angles add up to 90 degrees to form a right angle. So watch this video, come in with questions. I know this is long, this is a 9-minute video, but that's everything you need to know about parallel lines. Slides are on Pupil Path, do practice problems, do the review sheet, come in with questions.